Well, for their views on the Prime Minister's state visit to Washington, I'm joined now by three MPs from the different parties. David Lametti is a Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade. Todd Doherty is a Conservative MP for the British Columbia riding of Caribou Prince George. And Sheila Malcolmson is the NDP member for the BC riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith. All three of you, thanks for taking the time. I know you're heading off to your ridings right after this, but I want to ask you, we have ministers and a Prime Minister coming back from Washington. First of all, David Lametti, what people are watching this, and one of the questions is this just a really good time and a great photo op, or is it something substantial? What do you think Canadians should make of this trip, this state visit to Washington by the Prime Minister?
Well, it's very substantial. I mean, as former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney once said, the single most important thing that a Canadian Prime Minister can do is establish a personal relationship with the President of the United States. It's our most important relationship, political relationship, trading relationship. We have a great deal to share. We have a great deal in common. Many of our policies and politics overlap and coincide. So it's critical that we establish that personal relationship with the President. We've done that. It's the first time in over 10 years that that's happened. And all of that leads to substantive movement on a number of different files. And you know, there are plenty of examples that have come out where we've made significant progress, or we've established groundwork or the framework on a variety of different areas. So it's really quite substantive. Okay,
Todd Doherty, what do you make of this visit, and what do you think Canadians should make of this visit? We saw a lot of smiles. We saw announcements of some agreements from the President and the Prime Minister.
Well, I think I know Canadians in my riding at Caribou Prince George are a little bit disappointed, especially when it comes to softwood lumber agreement. You know, we got more vagueness out of that in some way or some fashion that this irritant that is known as softwood lumber will be was discussed or it came up, and yet no agreement in place. I think we've got the message from my honourable colleagues is that, you know, in 100 days they'll come back with maybe some ideas of how a framework can be negotiated. And the concern is that as we move towards the U.S. political cycle, getting further and further into that, and we've got an administration that is outgoing, you know, we have some real concerns. We have jobs that are being lost, and does little to instill confidence in Canadians that are losing jobs. And the unemployment numbers were just released today, 7.3%, the highest rate in 3 years. You know, Canadians from coast to coast to coast are losing their jobs, and what they needed to see is that those priorities that deal directly with Canada's economy were top of mind.
Okay, Sheila Malcolmson, what do you make of the visit? I mean, we did see an agreement on methane, an agreement by both parties to reduce their emissions of methane by up to 45% by 2025. Concrete commitment on that. What else? What do you make of the visit?
To me, to the NDP, it would have been great with all this attention focused on Canada and on Barack Obama to have really been able to come forward with some meaningful action that changes people's lives right now. I mean, in my province, we've lost 21,000 manufacturing jobs in the wood industry, value-added jobs, good-paying jobs under the Conservative time where we didn't have people standing up for the softwood lumber agreement. We were really hoping, I mean, this wasn't a surprise to anybody that this was going to expire. And yeah, an announcement to say we've got a process and we'll get back to you in 100 days is certainly no comfort to people that have lost their jobs in the riding. Same thing with climate change. You know, to have an announcement around we're going to strike some committees doesn't get us any further ahead. We still have a Liberal government committed to the Conservative government's climate change targets, which we've known for 30 years are inadequate. So we're would certainly have been happier to see some concrete action moving forward, both on forestry, jobs, and on climate change.
Okay, David Lametti has been referred to by both of your colleagues there, and that is the softwood lumber situation. Let's just sort of trace it out a bit for our viewers. Softwood lumber agreement was a 9-year agreement. It expired in October. There's a 1-year grace period, but after that, so October of next year, American lumber interests, protectionist interests, we've seen what they've done in the past. It's almost a constant of American politics. They start to levy all sorts of tariffs and try to punish the Canadian industry. Your colleagues are saying there's a commitment to have some sort of announcement of something within 100 days. What can you tell us about that?
Look, to have the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada say publicly that they are committed to solving this issue as soon as possible with an agreement is a huge deal. My honourable friends from British Columbia have to admit that Christy Clark characterized the news as fantastic. It's a big deal. We've been working on this file since day one. The previous government saw the end of the agreement coming in October 2015 and didn't do anything to renegotiate it. We picked it up from day one. The Minister of International Trade and the Prime Minister have raised it at every single occasion. We have begun our contacts at a variety of different levels, both at the prime ministerial, and administrative levels, to get a deal done. And we've committed to a short time frame, 100 days, to put the parameters of possible agreements on the table. These are public commitments that the President of the United States has made with our Prime Minister. This is a huge deal. We're moving forward on the file to make sure that we get this deal done, to avoid all of those tariff battles, countervailing tariffs, and that sort of thing, which are not productive, which end up costing us a lot of money.
Okay, Todd Doherty, I'll put this to you, but I'll put it to both of the opposition members, and that is, I remember, I'm dating myself, but I remember 10 years ago when that initial softwood lumber agreement, or that one from 10 years ago, was negotiated. And it took so long. It went for more than a year of negotiations, and it went from David Emerson as a Liberal minister to David Emerson as a Conservative minister, and he finally sealed the deal for the Conservative government. But it was more than a year. I think it was a year and a half of negotiations. David Lametti is saying to have a 100-day commitment and to have Barack Obama saying this will be done. I saw him at the press conference yesterday saying we will have something, and I think his quote was, "It's certain that people will be dissatisfied, but they will get 50% of what they want." He's committing to 100 days of something.
Well, therein lies our concern. Our Conservative government in 2006 put to the end one of the longest and most costly trade disputes between our two countries, and brought forth some stability in an industry that is so vitally important to our nation. And the agreement lapsed in October. That's true. This government campaigned on a platform that they had a plan. And our concern is that it is going to take longer than the 6 months that we've already seen go past, the next 100 days. And again, where's the focus of the U.S. administration going to be as we move further into this political cycle?
But you don't have any confidence when the President of the United States says we'll get this done?
Well, I don't have confidence in it when they say in some fashion. They called it an irritant. This is not an irritant. This is critical to Canadians from coast to coast to coast. And it means well-paying jobs. And it means jobs within my riding and my colleagues' riding. And we have to stand up and we have to make sure that this government is focused on creating those opportunities and the environment that creates jobs and stability within our communities.
Okay, Sheila Malcolmson, the last word to you on either the softwood lumber file or Canada-U.S. relations, which seem to be at least on a friendly basis these days.
It's fantastic to see a change in tone. There's no question, and we are deeply optimistic and hopeful that the Liberals will be able to bring it home, both on softwood lumber and on a really strong commitment around actual reductions in CO2 emissions. We need this for climate change. We need it for local jobs. We need to have the good intentions put into action, and I think we really owe it to Canadians to give them something solid they can sink their teeth into. And I'll stand up and applaud, no question, if they can get these done. But I wish we'd seen something more solid.
Okay, well, I want to thank all three of you. That makes 4 of us who weren't invited to the special state dinner. We can all go back to a nice home-cooked dinner tonight. Thanks all 3 of you for taking part.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.